Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the August 2020 Stampin' Class by Mail featuring the Playful Pets suite of products by Stampin' Up. I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net, and I've teamed up with fellow demonstrator Gina Wieselman to offer these monthly classes by mail. This month it's Gina's turn to show you how to make your cards, and next month it'll be my turn. Make sure to watch to the end of the video for a sneak peek of the cards I've designed for September's class and for some bonuses for signing up for that class. Have fun making your cards. Here's Gina.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Wieselman of mysweetpaper.com, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble our Playful Pets cards this month. From the suite, we'll be using the Pampered Pets stamps, Playful Pets Designer Series paper, Playful Pets trim, and Playful Pets trinkets. We'll also be using some elements that will be pre-cut, punched, or embossed for you if you order a kit from either Brenda or me. These elements include things from the Pets dies, Layering Circles dies, Tasteful Labels dies, the Banner Triple Punch, and the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. Our ink colors for August are Tuxedo Black Memento, Real Red, and Basic Gray. Because we'll be adding some fun color to the pets that we stamp, a blender pen will be included in the class kit for anybody who hasn't received a blender pen from us already. If you've already gotten a blender pen, just make sure to pull that out from your previous kits and use that in August as well. Please reach out to either Brenda or me if you have questions, need stamping supplies, are interested in learning about the opportunity to become a Stampin' Up demonstrator, or want to learn more about other stamping events. Let's get started with this month's cards. Our first card is the Dog Sympathy card. If you're taking the class by mail through either Brenda or me, all of your parts and pieces are cut and shipped right to your front door. If you didn't sign up for the class by mail kit, pause here to cut and prep all the parts and pieces you'll need for this card. The first thing I'm going to do for this card is take out my Real Red ink pad and do the stamping with Real Red. On the card front, I have the food bowl just kind of randomly stamped around. So in no particular pattern, I'm just going to make a design. And that should be about right. If you'd like, you can pull up the patterned paper just to see and make sure that you've gone up high enough. The other bit of Real Red stamping is just on the inside of the card. So I'm just going to add a couple sets of hearts, just because I like to have a little something on the inside. Now using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, I'm going to add the greeting that is on the front. Now I've just kind of laid out the pieces here, and I like to do this just so that I can kind of eyeball about where I want them to end up. And so I think I'm not necessarily aiming for the center here, just looking for a bit of balance and making sure that I leave enough room for the twine. So I might actually go down a little bit. And then I'm just going to ink up my stamp. And there we go. And the last bit of stamping for this card is the dog that's on the front. So if you purchase the kit, you received a couple of different options for this. One, I already die cut the dog for you, so you need to stamp on this shape. Or if you have the dies at home, you can stamp on this piece of Thick Whisper white cardstock and then use the dies to cut it out. Alternatively, if you'd like, you could certainly stamp on here and then fussy cut just using your paper snips as well. But to show you a technique, I'm going to show you how to use the Stamparatus and both the positive and the negative of the image to get a perfectly stamped dog on this piece that's already die cut. So I have my Stamparatus here. First thing I'm going to do is just take a stamp set and place it behind. That makes a nice level surface here. I also have a piece of grid paper, and I'm just going to put that up in the corner and then use one of my magnets to secure that down. What I'm going to do now is take the dog stamp that we want for our card and just put it on the Stamparatus platform. Doesn't really matter where it's going to stamp, but I'm going to ink it up using my Memento ink. And stamp it. Okay. So now what this has done is created basically a pattern for us to use. So I can position this negative right over and try to center it exactly how I want it, and then use my other magnet, drop this little guy in, and re-ink. And stamp. And just like that, if I pop out the dog, it's perfect. Now, if you bought the kit and you're making multiple cards, just keep this right in place, drop in your next positive punched image, and keep going. That is all the stamping for this card, but next I'm going to go ahead and add the color to the dog here. So if you took the class by mail, you may have received a blender pen with it. If you've done a previous kit that used a blender pen, go ahead and pull out that one. But if not, this should have been part of your kit. So I'm going to take my basic gray ink pad and open that up. And I'm going to just use one of my plain acrylic blocks to create a bit of a palette. So just by getting a little ink on there, that should be all I need, I'm going to be able to pull color right into this dog. You'll see there is some basic gray and real red coloring. I'm starting with the basic gray because the color is less saturated. So I open my blender pen and I'm just gonna make sure it's clean and pull up a bit of color. Now I always like to do a little test and see, like, that's pretty dark. So I'm going to just scribble a little bit and then come in and start coloring my dog. And what I'm going to do is just kind of add the most concentrated color along the sides, or right where you can kind of see the fur texture, and then just kind of scribble out the rest. And the nice thing is that this is obviously fur, so you don't have to worry too much about perfect coloring or, you know, the direction of all of your strokes, because a little bit of randomness is actually going to be a good thing. It'll add some texture to the dog. You can always go back and add kind of some more strokes if you want a bit more texture to it. But the blender pens are a really perfect use when you don't have to worry about perfect even coverage. We really don't want that here, and that's why I'm using the blender pen instead of the Stampin' Blends. Now for my collar, I'm just going to scribble with the edge of my pen. Notice I am keeping it at an angle. I'm not doing straight up and down because I don't want to squish the tip. But once that's clean, I'm going to come in with my real red. And you could clean this, you could grab another block, but I left enough space on this end that I'm just going to pull up a tiny bit of red ink as well. And then this is going to be pretty saturated, but I am fine with that because it's just for this little collar. I actually want it even darker, so I'll go over it one more time. The other thing to note here, this is the thick Whisper White cardstock that we're using, and that is going to be better for coloring because it won't pill or curl up with the wetness of the blender pen. So since I'm done, I'm just going to scribble out, and you can see here how much more saturated this is than the gray. But I like to make sure my blender pen is nice and clean before I cap it so that it's ready for the next time. Okay, and we are now ready for the assembly. So I'm going to pull out my Stampin' Seal and put it on the back of this piece that will go horizontally across the card. And then again, I just want to make sure that I leave plenty of room for that dog. Okay. And what I'm going to do is line up this patterned designer series paper along one of the sides, because I sometimes like to just cut this to be a little bit too long and then go in with my paper snips and trim off the excess. And by doing this, I make sure that there's no funny gaps or any sort of space between the patterned paper and the solid paper underneath. I'm also just going to go ahead and adhere the dog onto the die cut circle. In placing the dog, I am going to be sure that all of the words are straight across horizontally. Don't want any sideways words there. And then I'm going to take my twine, which is this really beautiful white and black twisted pattern. And this came from the Playful Pets Trim Combo Pack, which actually includes 2 different kinds of ribbon that coordinate perfectly with this suite. So I'm going to be tying a bow toward the left side. So I'm just going to kind of arrange, make sure I like how much I have to work with. And then once I've done my half knot, I'm going to come in here and thread my charm. You'll notice that wasn't really a beautiful threading, but as long as you get most of the pieces through, the rest should pull along as you thread it through. So I'm going to go like that. Now with the Playful Pets trinket threaded on and ready to go here, one of the tricks that I sometimes use when I'm tying a bow, especially if there's like an extra object in the way here, it can get tricky to hold this part tight. So sometimes what I do is I just take the edge of my paper snips and place that right on the part that I'm trying to hold tight and use that to hold it as I tie my bow. And then I can just work this around a little bit. There we go. And that tip of pressing this in, I just find that my fingers get in the way sometimes, so that makes it a lot easier for me to make sure that this is tight enough to my card. And I just pulled in some additional string here to show you how I got this oriented properly. You'll notice after half of my bow, you have one string going up and the other pointing down. And I just take the one that's pointing down for my first loop and then wrap up and around with the string that's pointing up for the second. And in that way, you should end up with both strings coming out the bottom. Now we have our last little bit of assembly, so I'm going to take my card base and fold it along the score line using my bone folder to get a nice crease. And then I'm going to place this front panel on, again using my Stampin' Seal. And when I have ribbon or twine across the top, I like to be really generous with this Stampin' Seal on both sides of that, just so that there isn't any slippage and that it really can't slide out of the card. Then I'll do the same with this inside panel. Just get some Stampin' Seal. And then the very last piece to adhere, of course, is our mounted dog. And I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals. If you have either the minis or the full size, either option will work. If I'm using the minis, I'm gonna just use 5 of them to make sure that it stays nice and popped up. Peel off the release paper and then position that. Very last step, I want to trim these threads. So I'll use my paper snips and cut those down. You can play around with the length of what you have left, but I think that looks about right. Our second card is the Catnip Treat card. Again, here are all the parts and pieces if you need to cut and prep these before you stamp and assemble. Once again, I'm going to start with my stamping. First, I'll be using the basic gray ink pad. And I'm just going to be using this and the little mouse to make a fun pattern on the inside of my card. So I'm just going to make these little mice run right across and off that card. And next I'm going to use my Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad to stamp the "I hope your day is a real treat" greeting for the card front. So I'm going to ink up and aim for the center of this panel. I'm actually not loving the way that that stamp transferred, so I'm going to flip it over and make sure to do a better job inking up. There, much better. The other bit of stamping is our cat. So like the first card design, if you ordered a kit, you received both a piece with the cat die cut, the positive and negative images, as well as a whole piece. So once again, if you would like to stamp right on here and then cut with either paper snips or with the die, if you own it, feel free to do that. But I'm going to be using my Stamparatus again. So this time, this is of course the same setup as where I did my little dog stamp. So this time I'm just going to set my cat down and make sure that it's in a different place before I pick up the stamp with the Stamparatus. Then I'll do my inking. Create that pattern so that I know exactly where to place this. And then that looks good. Add my magnet, put the cat back in place. Ink, stamp, and if I can get it out, it looks good. For the cat, we're going to be using very much the same coloring technique with the blender pens as we did with the dog. So I still have my palette here, you know, with the red, the real red and basic gray really separated. So I'm just going to resume right from that same palette. Once again, when I have the more concentrated color or the darker shade, I'm a little bit more careful with where I start coloring. And then once I have that initial darkest color off, then I kind of just scribble around with it. And again, if you want to go back and add any texture at all, this is a furry cat, so texture is a good thing here. We don't just want uniform coloring. Okay. Scribble any remaining gray out. And this time I'm going to pick up the tiniest bit of red because we're going for just a little bit of pink to go in those ears. So I got most of the ink off before I went in and added the pink. And then I'll just get any remaining out and cap my blender pen. And now that all my stamping is done, we have a lot of assembly. So I'll take my Flirty Flamingo card base, fold along the score and use my bone folder to crease that. I'm going to go ahead and put my card insert on the inside right away. Just get a little stamp and seal. Got a little bit on my paper here, so I'm just going to make sure and rub that out before anything sticks to it that I don't want to. And then on 2 of the basic black squares, I'm going to add this Designer Series paper from the Playful Pets Designer Series paper pack, which is so fun. I just love all of the patterns. They're so playful, as the name reveals. I'm just trying to center these to the extent possible. And now I want to just kind of lay everything out. So I have these 2 textured pieces that I embossed with the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. And so I just want to kind of place them so that there's about equal border on the side and top, or sides and bottom. I'm gonna place these, have the one in the center, just to kind of make sure the placement is all looking about right. And then when I go to assemble, first I want to make sure that there is kind of a difference between the front and back side. Not that it's a big deal, but I'm just going to make sure that they're both the same side up. And I'm going to start assembling with these. Rather than trying to estimate what the center of my card is, this is going to be a lot easier for me because I can use the guide of equal pink, equal Flirty Flamingo on left, right, and top for this piece. And on the bottom, I can aim for even border of Flirty Flamingo on the left, right, and bottom. And then as I'm placing the 3 squares in the middle, I'm going to start with the 2 on either side, because what I'm doing here is I'm lining up the edge and then just centering so that there's even Flirty Flamingo between. Note, this is directional. I don't want the paw prints to be upside down, so I am paying attention to that. Again, aiming for an even edge with equal Flirty Flamingo on either side. And then for the last one in the center, it will be pretty easy to figure out where that goes, because again, even edges is what I'm going for. I'm going to go ahead and add my greeting. Remember, I had my bad one on the back, so I'll just go ahead with that. Okay. And then for my cat, you'll notice it has the collar around it with the cute little heart trinket. So I'm going to take my twine and thread it through one side of the heart. And then about in the middle, I'm just going to create a half knot. Okay. Now with that, for connecting this to the cat, what I'm going to do first is on the back of the heart, I'm going to pull up a mini glue dot. And I'm actually going to use that for positioning the heart right where I want it to go on the cat and making sure that it stays where I want it. And then with these pieces, I am not going to attempt to tie anything on the back. All I'm going to do is take another couple of glue dots and put them right on the back of the cat, about where this twine should be going. And then just pull it around and stick to the glue dots. And I found that that was plenty of adhesive to keep that twine right in place. If you have any extra hanging off, go ahead and snip it with your paper snips. But otherwise, we will just use our mini Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm going to put that one right on the end of the twine. And once we peel the release paper, we can just put that cat right where we want it, apply a little pressure, and there we go. Our last card features the Fun Fold dog design, and here are all the parts and pieces for this card. The stamping for this card is really simple, so I'm just going to start with my Memento Tuxedo Black ink and the Enjoy stamp. And on this Whisper White panel that's going to go on the inside, I'm just going to put Enjoy kind of in the corner, bottom right. And then with my Real Red ink pad, I'm going to go ahead and just add a couple little hearts here as an accent. And that is actually all of the stamping for this card. So for my assembly, I have my card base, my Real Red card base, and it's scored twice. Once down the middle and once to create this section into quarters. So I'm going to fold in half as I normally would for any card. And then along this second score line, I'm going to fold it back. And this is what creates that fun fold. Now with the card creased where it needs to, I'm going to go ahead and use my Stampin' Seal to add my stamped panel to the inside. Just going for even borders there. And then with it situated like this, I'm going to add the Designer Series paper panel. You can get kind of a sneak peek of the cute design on the back here. So many cute dogs. And again, with placing this, I'm just going for even borders. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is take the banner that I cut using the banner triple punch on Real Red, put some adhesive in the middle, and I'm going to use this centering line of my grid paper to line that up. Okay. And then with this basic black piece, which I die cut using the Tasteful Labels dies, it's actually pretty easy to see the center on the top and bottom because it kind of juts out a little bit. And same on the sides. So as I position this, I'm going to aim for this vertical center to be in line with the grid paper and my horizontal center to be in line with the banner. I'm just going to make sure it's straight and apply my pressure. Then I'm going to take this cute little dog and add some adhesive to the back of him and put him on here as well. Now the cool thing about this dog is it's cut directly from the Playful Pets designer series paper using one of the coordinating dies. So there was no need for me to fussy cut or anything with this. I just grabbed the designer series paper, grabbed a die, and cut perfectly around him. Now in attaching this to my card front, probably the easiest mistake would be applying your adhesive across the entire back, which would effectively seal your card closed. So when I pull this down, I'm going to flip it and then just apply adhesive to the half of this assembly. Making sure it's straight, approximately centered. There we go. And the last piece is the bow, which if you purchased a kit was pre-tied for you from the Playful Pets trim. And I'm just going to pull up a mini glue dot on the center of that bow and position it right on the label. And that is our fun fold design. Of course, it wouldn't be a Stampin' Class by Mail if I didn't share some additional card samples with you. So first up is this card design. I think the grumpy cat face paired with the greeting, "I hope your day is a real treat," is a really funny combination. But when I looked at this design, I just felt like something was missing or it was a little off balanced. So I decided to add in another layer using the basic black and the stitched rectangles dies. And I felt like this balanced the card out a lot more. So this is ultimately the design that I landed on. And using the same coloring technique as the cat card we made, this card design I made so that I could feature so many of the designer series paper patterns and colors and everything that coordinated together. So each of these papers in the back was cut using the lovely labels Pick-a-Punch, and they're slightly different sizes, both in terms of width and length, but I think they just make a really fun background for this card. And the designer series paper features so many fun patterns, including lots of little cats. So for these cats, I used a die to cut this little one, and then I fussy cut the other 4 out of the designer series paper. And I used my layering circles dies to just create some windows for a little bit of a peekaboo card, which is a really fun way to showcase a bunch of the different cat designs. And now for some dog cards. This first one was actually a swap that I received from Julie Tonsager in a swap group I'm part of. And I wanted to show this one because it uses the same designer series paper from the Playful Pets suite, but you can see it paired with a different punch. So this is the dog builder punch. And I think there are lots of different possibilities with the dog builder and the cat builder punches used alongside with the Playful Pets suite. This card is actually relatively similar to the Fun Fold design that we made, but I really wanted to feature the dies that cut out the paw prints. So I decided to just do that across the top and keep kind of the negative of the black showing through, and I think it's a really fun addition to this design. And finally, once again, I just couldn't resist the cute dog designs in the designer series paper. So for this sample, I fussy cut these 3 dogs and positioned them on the card front with some more backing of designer series paper, and of course, one of the Playful Pets trinkets. Thank you for participating in this month's Stampin' Class by Mail, and here's Brenda with a few more things.
Thank you for showing us how to make those adorable cards, Gina. If you ordered a Stampin' Class by Mail kit from either Gina or me, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you for a specially curated Pinterest page that Gina and I put together that shows even more fun ideas on how you might use your Playful Pet supplies. September is my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to show you a sneak peek of the card designs featuring the brand new Plaid Tiding suite of products by Stampin' Up. This week can be found in the new August to December 2020 mini catalog, and it's all about the holidays. Now I know it's a little hard to think about holiday stamping given it's August and it's hot outside, but it's never too early to start your holiday stamping. We're changing things up a little bit in September. Instead of 3 card designs, we'll have 4. 1 for each of the 4 upcoming holidays: Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Valentine's Day. You'll get supplies to make a total of 9 cards, 2 cards for each of the 4 holidays, and then you get to pick which holiday you'd like supplies for a 3rd card. From the Plaid Tidings Suite, we'll be using the Celebration Tidings stamp set, the Plaid Tidings Designer Series paper, and the 3/8" embroidered ribbon. Also from the mini catalog, we'll be using the Wonder Season Ribbon Combo Pack and the Sequins for Everything. And from Stampin' Up's annual catalog, an optional stamp set, A Wish for Everything, for the inside greetings. We'll also be using some elements that have been pre-cut and punched for you if you ordered a Stampin' Class by Mail kit from either Gina or me. These elements include things from the Celebration Labels dies, the Banner Triple Punch, and the Story Label Punch. Our ink colors include Tuxedo Black Memento, Cajun Craze, Cherry Cobbler, and Melon Mambo. The deadline to register and guarantee your kit supplies is September 5th, 2020. We do have a special bonus deadline of August 27th, 2020, and if you register by this date, you'll receive 2 extra completed cards with envelopes with your September class kit. We also have some bonuses if you find new people to take our Stampin' Class by Mail, so be sure to check your email or reach out to either Gina or me to learn more. If you're not already on one of our email lists, please contact us to learn more about this class and other fun stamping opportunities. As always, please let us know if you have any feedback on our Stampin' Class by Mail. And until next month, happy stamping!